Welcome to AI for Mining Industry webinars. I'm the host, Nermina Harambasik. The purpose of these webinars is to understand the benefits of AI for mining, learn about the AI tools, use cases, implementation methodologies, and ultimately facilitate the adoption of AI. So our first guest is Cheryl Hart, and we are thrilled and thankful to have Cheryl kick off this series of webinars. The topic of the first webinar is strategy for AI adoption. Cheryl Hart is CEO and founder of the OnTask strategies. She has 20 years track record across various sectors, working with teams from startups to billion-dollar industries. She brings wealth of knowledge to the mining industry as a technology investor, board advisor, and industry collaborator. Her solutions are practical, leveraging experience in both public and private sectors, as well as government. She is recognized as growth catalyst, building global networks and breaking down barriers to help businesses advance their solutions. Welcome, Cheryl. So let's start with your AI journey. Why is AI technology of interest to you?
Hi, Nermina. Thank you. Thank you. Hi to everyone. I don't see everybody on there, but glad we could have you join us today. And Nermina, thank you for inviting me. It's been a really exciting journey, actually, to connect in and really kind of understand what's happening in the AI space. So, my experience really ranges from collaborating, promoting, technology adoption, and I've worked with leaders such as Shell, Amazon, and Google, and really kind of connected in with some roles on specific technologies in the mining industry, and also played an important role in connecting these pieces at the Ontario government. So really, my journey starts with having initial interactions. So if you show that here and show the next slide there. So in 2017, I worked with, I actually went to a discovery event, and if you see under 2017, this lady there, she's a robot, and she's one of the most advanced robots out there right now. And essentially, I found it actually to be a little bit scary. Her name's Sophia, and I stood beside her, but I have to tell you, I don't know if you see the distance, I didn't want to get too close. And I think what's happening with a fair bit of people, if they haven't been engaged with what's happening with robots and AI and stuff, there is a little bit of an intimidation feel. And you can see the second picture, she's literally on the stage, Sophia's speaking to an audience. And that was kind of my real first integration and exposure with this kind of technology and just really what can it do for us. So definitely 2017, a bit scary. And then I started to really work on, looking into how this is happening in other sectors. And at the time I was working in water technologies. So we have at the Ontario government, they opened up in 2017, but 2018, I really started to kind of keep an eye on the Vector Institute. And that's out of the Mars Institute in Toronto. But it's an Ontario government structure that was supported with the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research and the government of Ontario. And I worked at the Ministry of Economic Job Development and Trade at the time, and really kind of look to see what's happening there. I don't know if anyone knows of the godfather, we call him the godfather of AI, is Geoffrey Hinton, and Brandon Frey and Raquel Yurdason established this AI Institute in Toronto. So interesting enough, we are actually a very strong, we have a very strong hub in Toronto for AI, as well as in Montreal. We're well known for this, actually. And the second piece you can see is I started seeing people using AI in different sectors. So the water technology sector, for example, this was AI advanced software that was able to identify different kinds of algae, blue algae and different things of the threats that's happening in the water. This one I was saying, well, this is a really interesting way that we're using it. I really didn't delve into it. It was just really kind of going to events and seeing how this comes together. And then about 2019, working with economic development and Ministry of Mines, I started seeing us have in our social media the beginnings, and this one on the right-hand side of 2019, you're talking about sector development. What's happening in our ecosystem? So where are we getting advanced technologies? What sectors are looking at it? What's the latest subsector that we should be looking at? And I highlighted a couple spots here. One being the fastest growing subsector was artificial intelligence. The first being manufacturing robotics, second being agricultural tech and food, and blockchain and digital banking. So it's kind of interesting as how mining actually plays into all of those. As we know, we supply into that for the foundations of that. And I also highlighted the name Sam Altman. And if everybody understands today, OpenAI, Sam Altman was at the helm there, but started as the chairman of Y Combinator. So it's interesting to see how fast things have moved from 2019. So as I follow my journey along here, and if you want to go to the next one there, I have, 2020, you'll see that I started to get a little bit more curious and got engaged with a tech startup called Rockmass Technologies, and that used technology underground for structural scanning. And that brought wireless information straight up to geological units groups so that we could get information up there quickly. And then as you can see, these kind of fun pictures, it's just kind of playing around with it and really kind of understanding what are these, social media tools. So this one's you can change your face, and this one's like a bunny, the other one is that's actually a Shakira video, my face is going on her. So really kind of understanding how we can use these tools. But also I got engaged with Discord groups. So these are conversations with people speaking about how this new tech is advancing and just kind of understanding how groups are using this. And also Slack, if people use Slack as their conversational piece, how are we connecting communications and pieces like that. So when I really looked at 2021 to about 23, I really started looking at someone who I absolutely love, and I put her up here, is Allie K. Miller. And she was a product developer lead at Amazon and IBM. And she advises tons of companies, Fortune 500, Fortune 10 companies right now, and learning about machine learning from podcasts, from interactions, from webinars like this, for example. And I also have Cassie Kozyrkov. She came a little bit later, but essentially she was the chief decision scientist at Google. And being a strategic thinker, a strategic person, supporting strategies, advancing economic development, markets for different regions around the world, what's kind of interesting is we have to make these kind of decisions. What things are we moving forward? What items are we going to put more resources in? Which kind of labor force do we need to support these economic development sectors? Me more specifically focused in mining. And during that period as well, near the end, similar to this, I started doing a podcast. So, some of the things is what's the future of productivity look like? How are we going to pull that in? That was with Amazon. And how is AI reshaping our innovation? So really kind of getting curious into does this integrate into our actual day-to-day business cycle? That was an AI scheduler. Every time you have to figure out where you can connect on pieces with other people, especially when you start adding more people, it gets hard to schedule. Well, this AI tool absolutely just does it all for you in that sense. And then as we are today at 2024, and Nermina, you can appreciate we've been sharing some information actually since all this time. So both of us kind of behind the scenes looking at how all this comes together for us as consultants in an industry and helping advance the mining sector. So started looking at some business automation tools. So as you can see here, I've created an automated tool to be able to say, teaching about the critical minerals industry. And why I have this picture of myself on here is that is actually not a picture of me. realistically, that's my AI avatar, and it speaks for me. So, my mouth is open there, but technically, that's really not me talking. It's my AI avatar online doing that. So this is kind of where I am today. I've been kind of working behind the scenes. So it's been wonderful to share this mindset with you, Nermina, and being able to say, I'm not blatantly out there. I am by all means not an engineer putting this stuff together, but definitely have an appreciation for how this can help us, be able to advance our businesses. And as smaller companies, we don't have all the resources, but neither do the big ones. So we have to be able to use what we have and automate these pieces.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I actually didn't know you've been on this journey for so long already. And just to highlight what you said, Toronto is one of the, I'm going to say, AI centers of the world. That's how we feel about that. Back in 2012, there was a significant breakthrough with the AlexNet that actually brought the AI to the position of being able to execute or become what it is today. And that research was done under the auspice of the Professor Hinton by Alex, and I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name. It's as complicated as mine. But yeah, it is. For now, it is center. It is a center of the AI development.
And that's local. That's local to us here. So that's kind of interesting, and funding going into that as well. But based on the next slide there, the fundamental piece of all AI, and this is Cassie's. You keep going here and showing that Cassie, she's leading in this and saying, what's the point of a tool if it doesn't reduce your effort or increase what you can achieve? So I love what she's saying there. So really the strategic pieces, instead of focusing on whether it's good enough to be useful, Cassie, coming from Google, basically she's not there anymore, but she's building more tools. But fundamentally, the tool has to reduce your effort. It has to be able to do something for us. So strategically, when we're looking at these pieces, we have to just not take on an AI tool for the sake of saying that we want to, add to our portfolio that we're using AI. It has to be effective, and what exactly are you trying to achieve? Which is, in strategic work, that's the fundamental piece, right? And is it going to be good enough for you to make it useful? And then, we will obviously be speaking a little bit more of, I pulled together some 5 key phases that I think are really going to be useful for adopting kind of new technologies. And it's above and beyond just your traditional strategic work. You really have to know, what are you going to do to actually identify if you're realizing the benefits of AI in mining. So what I wanted to do, Nermina, today was just really kind of focus on not traditional strategic work that we do in our day-to-day to advance growth in businesses, but just realizing the benefits of AI. I think was a bit of more of a focus for AI in mining, because we really have to be able to make sure that it works for us, and that we're implementing structures that work for mining, because what might work for one industry might not work for another industry. So
absolutely.
I don't know if,
yeah, absolutely. I just want to say that really that's the purpose of these webinars. We want to translate all this great development that is happening especially over past couple of years in the AI into practical application. And developing strategy is really a first step or the part of the initial phase of the AI adoption. So thank you. I mean, you're absolutely perfect speaker for this series, and we would like to hear about these strategy steps and elements and pitfalls and successes and all of that. So walk us through all of this, please.
Hart, if you don't mind just zooming in, I don't know if you can zoom in the first segment, the first phase 1. If you go down and if you, I don't know if you can zoom in it for everybody to see a little bit more. But essentially, it's really understanding the innovation landscape. So, obviously, before you adopt anything, you have to understand I've come up with steps as well. I've got a quick tool for everyone at the end if they want a quick checklist. But if we're going to really delve down into realizing the benefits of these, that's the key word here, is understanding the innovation landscape. So essentially, it's really looking at what do we have already that's going on. We already have some predictive maintenance that's happening, the ore grade prediction and autonomous mining operations. We're looking to have almost like the Tesla trucks driving around. We're looking at battery electric vehicle. How much are we going to be able to control that in the mine? Open pit is a lot easier than underground mine, but obviously there's more danger, or there's structural danger in both areas. But ultimately, can we have autonomous driving happening there, and see what's already going on? Also, is just what are other mining companies doing? So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, AI is moving so fast. Every time we turn around, there's something new coming out, new models. And then, there's a balance between the fear of how much is it learning. And then there's also the pieces like, is it actually giving the information that you need? Is it factual? I mean, we're having big pieces of that, of garbage in, garbage out that's happening right now. So, investigate what's already happening in operations that people are using to gain a competitive edge. Does it work for you? Is this something that will help your operation? The other thing you have to also look at is, in the mining industry, we're very traditional and we're considered to be too slow. We have longer lead time. So really it's resulting a little bit more investment and requirement to develop. So we have to be able to make sure that we have the resources to do that. On the phase two, the phase two is really just assessing our organizational readiness. So look and really evaluate if there's willingness in the organization to embrace this. So, do you have the supports to do data-driven decision making? Do you have the skills and capabilities within your organization to actually take on this within your workforce and make those plans necessary for training and hiring the right people? You have a lot of competition externally outside of mining. So can you attract those people within mining? And as we know already, the technical groups that we need within to manage mining and have a strong understanding is already limited. So, being able to pull in this workforce is going to be really important. And then the infrastructure. Do you have the infrastructure to support the data collection that comes in, storing the data, processing all of the information, the right capabilities? So, really observing how the different departments exchange and be able to share this information is going to be really, really important. And one thing I'd like to highlight, actually, Nermina, is really to look and evaluate how individuals are adopting this, but don't make the assumption that certain age groups have a preference for it or not. We have varying age groups that are really interested in AI and some aren't. So typical technology scenarios along staff. So teams and individuals you have to look at their skill sets. The key third phase that I've highlighted is really looking at your strategic alignment. So that kind of goes back to the business objectives. Does the AI align with what you're trying to achieve, your key goals in your business? Is it looking for operational efficiency? Is it helping reducing those costs, enhancing safety, and increasing sustainability? And we know, we need to be able to make sure the workers come home. So the safety is super, super important, especially in our industry. And then is the innovation strategy, does it support the roadmap that you've come up with, prior strategies in an overall bigger picture? And then we also look at the implementation and planning phase. So, there's the change management piece, super, super, super important. So do you have leadership buy-in? You have to secure the commitment from the top executives to make sure that you're going to get the benefit of the AI through pilot projects, case studies, items like that. Super important, the communication plan that's happening with that as well. So as you're looking at that, are you informing and engaging everybody that you need to during these AI initiatives, moving super fast? Can you get the word out where you need with the right people? And then ultimately training and development. So you have an implementation that's happening. So you have to be able to integrate it into some legacy systems. Do you have the people, the training programs to build out the AI literacy that's happening across a data science realm with the machine learning that's applicable to mining, that suits the mining sphere? We are in a different sector, different topics, different jargon. Are we getting the right sets of information in and implementing it in the right way? And one of the things we can do is look at pilot projects, right? So you look at pilot projects, put in small, I dare say the word pilot, but you can just say small scale projects. And then you can use AI for predictive maintenance, optimizing blasting operations, for example, and building the confidence that is needed to be able to advance these technologies. And then really going back to more traditional stuff is using best practices, being able to collect that information within a clear timeline to be able to make sure that what you want to achieve is happening within the specific timeline with your objectives being those milestones, and you have the right resources. Do you have enough resources to allocate to be able to implement this? And super, super important that I've mentioned before is the risk management. So what kind of data quality issues? Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, I would say it 100 times. We just saw it with the Microsoft on the weekend. We have to be able to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. We want to make sure that the information that we're sharing with any of these tools are protected from any cybersecurity threats. And then we also have resistance to change. So sometimes it's your own employees don't want to have this implemented, or leaders. So making sure that you're reviewing those risks and then coming up with mitigation strategies, really making sure that you're managing that change management. And then I would say, like, ultimately, and you have to have this for every strategy, phase 5 is where monitoring those success and scaling it. So do you have the KPIs, the metrics put in to measure, are these initiatives being able to increase equipment uptime? Is it reducing energy consumption? As we all know, in mining, energy consumption is one of the largest expenses. Are we improving our ore recovery rates? So we know we're looking at the mine waste. We want to reduce waste, look at sustainability pieces. Are we able to improve this? And we are seeing some people using these technologies. And then the feedback loops, are we putting regular reviews to look at our data, performance data? So we might not, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up, but ultimately, can you see over time that you're actually performing in a way that you want to see your business case moving forward? And scalability, can you put it in one area and transfer to another production site? Does this work in all production sites? Being able to scale it and looking at the long-term viability and the future of your technology advancements overall. So AI plays a really important role there.
Excellent. Just a few points. As somebody said, the implementation of AI is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and truly is. So we shouldn't be rushing through the process and trying to implement something quickly, which is not going to return the expected results, and then it's going to kill whole initiatives. So it needs to be approached in a very systematic way. I'm coming from the execution of big projects. I know how important it is to actually walk through all the steps properly and assess them before you start cutting a piece of pipe in the field or in the manufacturing facility. And then if something goes wrong, you start fixing it, and it sours everything. Or the budget,
usually the budget,
schedule, and all of that. So it's I'm actually absolutely love the strategy, developing the strategy and having that structure around the transformation implemented. Before we continue, I'm just going to invite everyone, if you have questions, please type them into the chat box. and we'll address them toward the end. So back to you, Cheryl. All of these are very, very interesting points. So what else you can share with us? Did you have any case studies that you can talk about, or any thoughts how the industry should proceed?
Just go to the next slide. I just wanted to make sure, especially, in mining, we have to, I don't think we're the best at this, is really having external partnerships and ecosystem development. So you've gone all through this and advancing our sector, and we all know the technology sector moves super fast, but we have to be able to make sure that we're collaborating with research institutions and startups for AI. Because really, if we don't foster that collaboration, we won't be able to advance. We won't be able to share what's happening. So that knowledge base. And I know traditionally, especially in production, we don't want to necessarily share our advantages. But as we're seeing with the battery technology, we have to be able to share the items that aren't working so that we don't have injuries, so that we don't have bad information coming in. And the knowledge sharing has to really help us advance our sector in this. If we're not going to do that, we're really just shooting ourselves in the foot. And the second piece I really want to make sure we highlight is the regulatory compliance considerations. So we are leaders in this. We understand the safety side of it, and we have to be able to make sure that the data privacy laws that we're looking at and the safety standards and the information is lining up. And a really important thing is the algorithmic bias that we have. We see that these programs, for example, in North America versus somewhere in Africa, Bill Gates speaks about on the healthcare system that someone who has an ailment here would need different triaging that would happen in another part of the country. So we need to make sure that the biases that are going into these systems, the information is looked at to make sure that, especially in the safety pieces, that the information suits for male and female, different heights, for example, the different areas. So we have to just make sure that we're conscious of this in our sector. And as we know, we don't have as many females in the sector. So there's a tendency for rules and regulations and items to be more focused on the males in our industry. We have to make sure that we are super conscious of any of those biases. So some of the case studies we have to. That was the other piece I was going to say is the next slide here, and is just if we share our discoveries, really provide AI implementation benefits, so that'll just have that lowering of the feel of AI is taking over everything. But we're definitely going to have people with different viewpoints on this and how far AI is going to go within systems. But we also have to make sure that if we're advancing, that we can avoid some of these pitfalls, and goes back to some of these strategy pieces that get shared and see what's worked and hasn't worked. One of the case studies, so I want to speak about some of the really easy things that we're able to do. And I think you and I, Nermina, kind of both agree. It's just the key thing is get started and looking at simple, easy tools. Some of the things, if you're not already looking at ChatGPT and learning about, we do a lot of proposals, these kind of pieces, how to set up information. What's the new engineering prompt engineering is the new role, and being able to put that information in, see what you can get out. I think we've done in the past, I think Nathan's on here, and I saw we've put in stuff there and it's just come out as garbage before. It's not, have a technical person to make sure that the information that's coming out is actually factual. You'll start to see as you advance, at least in my situation, is you'll see hallucinations. So sometimes, especially ChatGPT versus you have some like Perplexity, for example, will are tools online that everybody can access. Perplexity doesn't hallucinate as much. What it will do is be able to reference the actual items that it's referring to. ChatGPT is not so good at that. There's a lot of no code build, the builder AI, you want something built, but you don't have the full resources ability to develop or, hire as many developers as you'd like. So there's tons of tools out there to get you started. But one of the things was I use Fireflies, for example, on my meetings. So it gives me a summary, quick information back, and it's helping businesses not spend so much time of pulling the notes together, getting the information that's coming together around the groups, the teams. We have all of us have tons of meetings every day. So we're able to have these note takers come in and be able to instantly not even 5 minutes, I get like 1 minute later, I get an email and it totally summarizes all of the information that was spoken about in a meeting. Now, I have to say, one of the cool case studies that I've had, I said, okay, with advancing operations, being able to save that time is phenomenal. But they're scared to have something like a note taker within your meeting. So you just have to be really conscious of being able to have the comfort in the room. So what's happened with me is everybody okay to have my note taker? Sure, no problem. Some people not so much, so I would take the note taker off. So what has happened in one of the case studies is I was in a meeting, and out of nowhere, we kind of come up with an answer that we were struggling with a little bit. And then we're all saying, like, it would have been nice to have the note taker there because it would have summarized all of the information that we were speaking about and working through. It would have summarized it really quickly, opposed to now you have to go back through, make the model that you spoke about. These note takers are able to make these models and be able to summarize and get the key objectives of the meeting out way quicker than any of us would ever be able to do. So that's like super simple tools that could come up. There's a program called GAN, actually makes PowerPoint presentations for you. If you put in ChatGPT and you ask for the code, you can actually take that code of the presentation that you want and actually just put it into the coding into PowerPoint, and it creates your PowerPoint right there. So integrating tools is another thing. Can you pair up these tools? So specifically in mining, so as we have the progression from the beginning of the mining, you're looking for ore bodies. How do all the tools integrate to be able to connect the systems? And you also have legacy systems, right? So those are some of the key areas, but that I've been using it in. But the key thing is also the data security. So essentially, large corporations have to be conscious of how they're having data into companies buying out other companies. So instead of having to be worried about where this information is going, we're seeing the smaller guys be able to create all these tools, but then the larger corporations just be able to, swallow the whole production up, so they don't have to worry as much about data breach and information being outside of the company's firewall. I think the biggest struggle right now, Nermina, that I'm seeing with accounts and clients is just, where do employees get to try these tools if it's not going to be on corporate infrastructure? So I think that's a key hurdle for all of us to be able to advance our skill set.
Right, and frankly, that's where I want to start this whole conversation is how do we start the implementation? And we just went through that strategy. So start with the strategy development, and that's going to lead you down the path of the implementation. One of the things that not only when it comes to the AI, but in general, that always kind of should I say bothered me, and I'd say same time drew my curiosity is the culture of the company, because that really is something significant that is not talked about often enough, not at the level that it deserves. how the culture of the company affects the adoption of the AI, and how AI is going to be changing the culture of the company. What are your thoughts on that? How the strategy of the AI adoption is going to impact the culture of the company?
I think that when people start to see results and impacts, I think one of the biggest impacts with AI is the change management piece. I think, where do you see people on the spectrum of adoption? I mean, it could be with any new technology, but ultimately it's looking at to say, where do people feel the trust is? And, big question is, does it replace everybody's job? I fundamentally, when computers came in, I didn't think that, they were going to replace employees. I think in the mining industry, we're very often, there's things that we can do more efficiently and we don't, especially in other regions, such as, larger populous areas. We are the big employer. So for us to put in technologies that replaces jobs, we start to have the question of when do we move over to this new technology, but then what do we do when we have to displace a bunch of people out of a job? So I think the mining industry traditionally has a huge problem in that area with larger workforces of what do we do, right? So as I've been saying, prompt engineers is like the latest and greatest thing. So when computers came in, what did we do? How did we retrain? So I think the largest strategic piece is the change management piece. And if you don't handle that, then I think that you're really pushing, a square.
Right. So it's also communication part, understanding what technology can and cannot do, and communicate that to the whole team and bring team along on the journey and take their inputs so that everybody is comfortable and knows which way the whole organization goes. I think that's another element.
Yeah, I think and I think you and I were talking about this before, is what are some of the points of failure when it comes to strategy development and implementation? And, I don't think that AI technology is necessarily a different scenario. You still have to, typically it's a lack of vision and goals. Poor understanding of your market and environment, insufficient stakeholder engagement, for example. So you have to be able to make sure that these pieces are looked at. If you don't have any resources to implement this, and back to what you said, poor communications. Does the staff understand that the pieces, and I've had this, I've worked with a team, and one-on-one time with them really is helpful to be able to say, okay, we're here to help you and advance you. And one of the pieces is get away from just being task oriented and being more strategic. So instead of typing all day long and you're getting all your information in, can you pull back and be able to strategically look at, okay, what do you have to do in your role to help your team? Get away from the task work. So, helping and saying, where do these tools help you on this? The communication. So that's that resistance to change really, I find is helpful if you have those conversations with employees. The inflexibility, if you're inflexible, strategically, if you're not going to move with the latest item that's coming in with AI, it's moving so fast. It's hard to just move into one direction after you're going another way, but you have to kind of look at how things are moving. And so that really comes into monitoring and evaluating. Okay, does this still make sense? But nothing's perfect. So if you don't start, you won't get anywhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's really, you really have to make sure that the strategy and the culture is aligned, because if it's misaligned, it's not gonna be an easy change.
Yeah. We as a people have a ways of sabotaging anything new and falling back to the easiest way or path of least resistance. I have to say I'm one of those. But so speaking of that, once you roll out the technology, you have all these big plans. You have a rollout plan, and then what? How to make sure that technology and that new path or new goal, new path really is being adopted and internalized and it stays rather than people defaulting back to the old ways? Is there a technique or technology or way to mitigate that?
Yeah, I look at this as, I put in a fair bit of CRM, customer relationship management programs, and I feel like you go back to your Excel, you go back to your traditional, methods, the Excel method, so these CRM systems have been built on, and they have a bunch of AI built into it too. How do your sales teams actually, get to used to doing voice dictation to be able to upload the information on your sales team, and then so your technical team can know what to do on the next pieces. So a lot of that that happens, and I just really think that to make sure that you don't go back to your default, is your leadership, is the leadership doing it? I think if the leaders aren't walking the talk, then you're really not going to have teams who see that it's effective for them. So if it's not effective for your leaders, why should it be effective for them? The other thing is just making sure that the employee ownership. So when you are putting in technology, the employees take ownership of implementing that and making sure that they're getting the training and being able to be the super user, as the old traditional way to say it. So instead of defaulting right back to the Excel, is the employee taking the accountability to say this is going to be implemented, and then be able to support their team members and across the board. And then reward, ultimately companies have to understand that the reward has to make sense for them. So is it easier work-life balance? Is it, am I taking on more work? So then do I get, more money for this? What's the reward for the employee at the end of the process? I think is a really key point. They have to see the value for them.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's very important that human factor is going to play a key role in the adoption process. So we have a question in the chat room. I didn't introduce Harun. Harun Research is helping us drive the whole presentation. So Harun, maybe you can just read the question.
Yes. So, well, I would say more of a discussion point, but I'll just read it out. The most problematic bias in AI could be in weather. What happens at a mining operation in central Ontario is significantly different than northern Manitoba, both summer and winter.
Mm-hmm. So, if you don't mind, Cheryl, I'll just say a few words. This, in my mind, comes down to application training. And it goes back to bias, which you mentioned. This can be it is brought up as a problematic bias. So if the training of the model is not done on the full spectrum of the real life data, then of course the application itself is not going to be able to provide proper answer or right answer. That's one thing. And I'll let you provide your answer, Cheryl. But I just want to say one thing. My training is in process automation. I'm an electrical engineer by training. Process automation is my major. And we always had for the safety critical systems, we had either triple redundancy for the electronic systems, or if it is ultra critical system, then we have fail-safe mechanical features. So that's something when we talk about systems in AI, we always have to keep in mind that critical systems, especially in the process automation, are still going to be mechanical system, like fail-safe systems.
I think that kind of goes back to thinking that there's a magic wand and that everything's going to be solved by putting, one answer in. So, Stephen says it right, in the sense of, I don't know if it's necessarily bias. Is it the right data? Is it the right information that's going in to be able to support that redundancy? I look at this and I say, well, are we looking at the system in a full picture? Are we looking at it? And we do that already in a fair bit of the weather controlled areas. Are we, especially for safety, like, the safety pieces, like some areas are cold, some areas are hot, you have to make sure that your safety equipment is adjusting for that. So the AI part on that, the redundancy, there's no magic wand. It's not going to be answered all at once, but you have to start somewhere and build on it. So if you're, potentially in, specific to the weather piece, if, we do cold weather testing, and Timmins, Toyota's been doing that for years. How does the battery react? How do the electronics react? So if you have autonomous driving, vehicles, how are they going to be able to function in the different climate zones? So, there's a fair bit of testing that has happened in that area. And back to what you're saying, Nermina, on operations, you have to have fail safes. You have to build up that the data that goes into supporting the various different regions.
Exactly. And that's all this, anyway, without going into internals of the model training, I'm sure everything changed. I mean, just a step back and the point to one of the, I guess, contracts or proposals, rather, that you talked about briefly. There is a company, Clio, that fundraised. It's in the field of legal business. They are basically helping companies legal companies file the claims and help with the court system. They're the one who raised $900 million, and that's the highest fundraise in Canadian startup business. So that's easily transferable to contracts. So when we talk about the collaboration, it's really not only collaboration within mining industry, but collaboration among different industries. So I'm just waiting for that to start happening, and for us to see kind of permeation of the AI coming from the other industries into a mining sector. And when I say mining, it's really it encompasses mining operators, explorers, consultants, construction companies, manufacturers of the equipment. We are all in the same area. It's the same environment for us. We are touching, we have many touch points among different entities within mining industries. So we shouldn't be just looking at the mining operators when we are talking about implementation of AI in mining.
I think
Sorry.
I was just going to say, that's okay. I think that goes back to so one of the other areas that you asked me to think about was how does a standard strategy, so how does strategy development and adoption for AI differ from a standard strategy versus development, developing a regular typical strategy? So I was kind of thinking about this, and I said, well, there's complexity and uncertainty. So in mining, there's a lot. It's the opposite. We know there's a fair bit of certainty once where we're going. What we're doing, that has to be consistent and understanding. Especially we have lives involved, especially underground. So AI is completely different. There's a lot of uncertainty that's going on. The regulatory landscape. There's a lot of regulations that we deal with in mining, not so much in AI technology right now. We have different regulatory scenarios happening in the EU, and that's happening in Canada. Canada is actually a very strong leader there right now, sharing data information very strong in the EU. Compared to us here, we don't have as much. Canada's a little bit stronger than the US in data sharing, privacy laws. The other thing is data-centric approach. Lots of data in mining, but obviously, AI is all about taking the data and trying to put in good, clean data to make sure that we're getting the right information out. The technical expertise completely, I would suggest, is completely different, but there's less emphasis on cutting edge technical skills and the infrastructure pieces in mining because we have a lot of legacy stuff. But we have to be able to pull in the latest technology. You have to have the people who have the skill set to do that. So I think you're just looking at technical expertise is a bit different. Innovation and iteration. So, AI is a lot of updates, whereas in mining, we have very stable, established models that, not saying that, seeing who's in the audience, I guess lots of us trying to, push against some of those traditional established models, but fundamentally that's where we're at. And then collaboration, we're the AI groups that I sit with and speak with, highly collaborative. I wouldn't say we're as much. So the strategy is a little bit different. The change management, getting people to share the issues that come up, I think is very different. And then scalability. So kind of back to what I said before, there's a lot of legacy systems that we're dealing with. So AI being new as it is, bringing on all these little tools and then implementing them into the larger legacy landscape, I think is a huge struggle for us. I think that'll be, for me, the most interesting piece. How much corporate M&A is going to happen, merger and acquisitions, with AI technology being brought up into the mining sector, I think is the future.
Yeah, and that's really good point, because when you look at the investment and in the mining industry versus AI, I mean, mining is really struggling at the moment to raise the funds for the new projects, whereas AI is leading the way. And I always looked at especially if you're a explorer, if you're a junior miner, this is your chance to actually adopt some of the AI technologies right from the get-go and actually attract the investment from the AI investors into mining sector, because you're implementing the technology working with, as you mentioned, working with the startups in creating the actual use cases for these startups. So you can merge this two areas, two environments into a single one, and help both mining industry with both investments and the implementation of new technology. So I would really like to see that happening. It's unfortunately.
So Karen, if you go into the next slide, I actually have it that, a quick checklist that we could, if anybody wants it, just send me a quick note, or you just scan it and just put in, lots of you guys here actually have seen the list who we are connected, but just, if you want that checklist, the strategic growth checklist, just send me a quick email, and Aaron, if you go down a little bit more, you can actually get my email there. And it really is just gets you preliminarily set up to be able to look at, do you have all the components, and be able to build on that. And, as we work through this, Nermina, we all know every day we read something new, something, you and I share information back and forth. Like, hey, did you see this? Did you see this? There's no way anybody has all the information. I think the key, here is start. I guess that would be my biggest, takeaway, that I would love everybody to be able to start doing. Just start looking at tools that work for you and that help you.
Excellent. So before we close out, and since you are so generously offering to share some of your information, some of your insights, can you just highlight some of the services that you can provide for the mining companies?
Sure, for sure. What I really focus in on is growth strategies. So if anyone wants to connect in, essentially what I'm able to do is look at what you're doing currently now, and look to see where your sales growth could actually happen. and then be able to connect with sales and operational teams and be able to connect with those tools and be able to connect in with your leadership team to be able to just look at what you're doing strategically. Sometimes you just need an outside person to look at what the business strategy is. And what I do is provide a strategy outline and then really work on the implementation pieces once we've had a chance to land on a strategy that everybody's comfortable with, that the leadership is looking forward to implementing, having the resources, and then being able to move the pieces forward that's required within your organization. And I work with partners such as yourself, Nermina, and some of you actually online, and just we don't all have the answers. We don't have everything in the basket. So I really look at being able to pull in the partners and be able to collaborate and advance the growth opportunities for the corporates.
Perfect. Thank you, Cheryl. This was really insightful. Thank you for sharing your expertise, because from my experience, I think too many companies are jumping into implementation without actually developing strategies. So I would just, whoever has the opportunity to hear this, to reevaluate the approach. Well, we will continue to work with you and follow your work and share your findings. So
thanks for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. If there are no other questions, I would like to close out this call. Thank you all for attending. I really appreciate your support here. Hopefully, we'll learn a lot more as we go along. Our next webinar is on August 22nd. We'll talk about optimizing operational excellence using AI. And the guest is going to be Michael Hartley from Internology. So stay tuned. Cheryl, thank you.
Thanks for everyone for joining.
Absolutely. And stay in touch, please.
Thank you.
Bye for now.